I am Betty Michelle, and I am beyond excited to have you join me for my podcast, The Purpose Talk, your weekly dose of inspiration, biblical truths, practical guidance, and heartfelt conversations, empowering you to live a life of purpose, creating the life you've always dreamed of. Each week, you'll join me to embark on a journey towards discovering your purpose, truly uncovering the unique gifts and talents that define you, and gaining clarity on the direction your life is meant to take. We will embark on a journey towards pursuing your dream, following the passions that ignite your soul, and turning your aspirations into reality with unwavering determination. Taking bold steps to live out your true calling and transforming your intentions into impactful actions that lead you to a fulfilling and purpose-driven life. So join me every week on this journey to pursue purpose. It's one worth taking. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of The Purpose Talk. If you've been rocking with me for a while, you know this space is all about pushing past fears, stepping into purpose, and growing into the person God has called you to be. And as we dive in today, we are keeping that same energy and momentum going. So let me ask you something. Have you felt the weight of change pressing in on you lately? Have you felt like the choices you have to make seem daunting? Have you found yourself looking around, wondering how life can feel so different yet so familiar at the same time? We are 49 days into the new year, and if we're being honest, change has rocked our world. From shifts in leadership and decisions being made in the current administration, to weather patterns that have us questioning what season we're even in. People are losing their jobs. The loss of family members is unbearable. Friendships fading. And yet we are out here still fighting to keep ourselves whole and to show up like life isn't truly lifing right now. Here's the truth. Everything that is happening in your life right now started with choices. And it is all happening for a reason. The fact that you woke up with breath in your lungs means that there is purpose in your life. And even in the midst of all this change, though change is hard, it is also good. It is also necessary. It stretches us, defines us, and if we let it, it positions us for greater. Today's show is rooted in just that, the choices we make and how they either hinder our progress or propel us forward. And let me tell you, this episode is going to be a good one. We're diving deep into research, biblical truths, and heartfelt conversation about how our decisions shape our destiny. So buckle up, grab your journal, and get ready, because this is about to be good. Now let's get into it as we dive into walking in purpose, the power of intentional choices. And speaking of choices, my goodness. Right now, I am in the middle of one of the biggest transitions in my life, moving to South Carolina with my children. Let me tell you, this change has not been easy. It has truly been hard. But through every tear and every doubt, every sleepless night, I have seen God's hand in it all. But let's be real. Just because we know God is working doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, right? The comment that I often hear as it relates to the podcast is that I talk about all of these biblical characters of the Bible who did big things in obedience to God. But how does that even relate to everyday people like myself? So I am dedicating myself to getting more personal so that you can understand that we are the modern day people of the Bible. Abraham, Moses, Ruth, Sarah, Deborah, David, Noah, Jonah, and even John. They are like you and me. They had no superpower. Their only hope and reliance was in God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They simply operated in faith. And speaking of faith, my move to South Carolina and how it started will reveal just that, my walk in obedience and my walk in faith. And though this story is still unfolding, I see God's hand in it all. And I want to show you, just like every other biblical character, you too can operate in faith and obedience like I am doing right now for the change that God wants to see in the world. You see, it's been this very moment where I feel a pull, but my flesh saying, no way, not now. And I get it because we've all been there, right? You know that there's this big thing that you need to do, but you're simply not up for the challenge. You know that there are choices that you need to make, but you're simply saying, no way, not now, not me. One of the hardest parts of this transition to South Carolina has been leaving my children behind. I went from daily affirmations and Bible study with them on the way to school to now trying to squeeze in words of encouragement over quick phone calls. My heart aches knowing that even though my family is more than capable of caring for my children, I still worry constantly. I worry about their well-being, their schoolwork, their emotions, everything. And homework over the phone, let me just tell you, it's an entire battle on its own. And then there's my middle son. Lord have mercy. He is smart, he is capable, but he has completely checked out this quarter of school. Just straight up decided that school is optional in his mind. And I am over here on the other end of the phone trying to get him back on track while navigating my own emotions and responsibilities. And my youngest, oh, we share both laughs and tears over FaceTime because no matter how much we try to stay connected, the absence still grows with every passing day. The truth is, change is hard, even when it's necessary, even when it's good, even when God is in it. And here's the thing about change. It requires choices. And that's exactly what we'll dive into more. We will be discovering what choices am I making right now that reflect the change I truly desire. Pursuing, am I actively pursuing the life God has called me to, or am I staying stuck in what feels safe? And acting, what actions am I taking to move forward, and are they pushing me toward my purpose or holding me back? Choices, right? Hmm. For me, it was the choice to take a job and move to South Carolina. A new opportunity came, a choice to make a big change in my career and in my life. And I almost talked myself out of it because this simply didn't seem like the time, especially with my family. I resisted the idea because it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right for my kids, for my finances. Oh, they're screaming, nope, this isn't the right time. You know how it goes when life is so uncertain and you're feeling stretched thin. So all of the logistics and concerns about how things will fall into place started to overwhelm me. It just didn't seem right. But the more I resisted and the more I tried to push the change away, the more I felt like God was saying, this is for you and the time is right. And when I tell you, the more I pushed back, the more God worked in ways I couldn't have imagined. You see, silly me, I was presented with an opportunity to relocate and said, sure, why not? Playing, right? Not even considering it for real. I had never thought about relocating before. If I'm honest, I was just in between a rock and a hard place. So I didn't feel like I could just bypass any opportunity given my current circumstances. However, that didn't mean that I was being serious. And if I'm being completely honest, I laughed at this opportunity and said there was no way I could make this work. And everything that was presented to me seemed like a stretch. The timeline. Nope, I can't relocate immediately. X. The work. Nope, I can't find myself doing all of that. I wonder how open they are to shifts. Double X. The salary, nope, not it, not even. Triple X. So I had already talked myself out of this opportunity. I checked no boxes. In fact, I put an X by many boxes, saying that this was not it for me, this was not the time, that was not the place, and I did not have the energy to go back as this type of career again. But you see, God definitely has a way of showing you that He has the final say in things. The turning point came when I had a conversation with the executive director of the organization. We connected so quickly, and she shared her vision for the role. She continued to say, "For the right person, I will make this work." I was stunned and taken back by how many things I said on that call to her and how she responded with, "For the right person, I will make this work." She was willing to wait on me to relocate. Check. Even though the demands of this position were immediate, she was willing to renegotiate the salary. Check. She was even willing to take my thoughts into consideration as we looked at the role, the demand of the work, and what that would truly look like. Check. So I went from all of these boxes that I had put a big red X on to talking to the executive director, and now there were check marks replacing those X's. Talk about a leap of faith. I went into this call thinking, there's absolutely no way this will work for her or for me. Then the kicker. She didn't even back down when I shared my concerns for my family, how they had to finish school in Tennessee. She didn't even flinch when I told her that I couldn't just drop everything and leave without knowing that this opportunity would work for my whole life, not just my career. And the math started mathing, okay? In fact, the more I overshared, the more I told her about my fears, the struggle of this transition, the challenges I was facing, the more she engaged. The more she asked me questions, and the more she showed me that she was willing to wait, to listen, and to work through the obstacles that presented itself. That's when I started to realize every roadblock I tried to throw up, every reason I gave to delay or to back out was met with a solution or was met with the opportunity to talk more and engage around solutions. Every time I tried to pull back from this ideal, God was showing me that He had already worked it out. The career, the move, the transition, it was all part of the bigger picture, a picture that God had already painted for me. He was calling me to do a new thing in a new place with a new group of people for a community that deserved it. And I did not quite understand at first. It wasn't just about a career move, it was about my purpose. It was about stepping into a new chapter of my life, one that I didn't know I needed, but God knew it was the right step for me. And trust me, I didn't get there easily. See, there was another opportunity on the table, one that seemed so much more comfortable. The other path felt doable, it felt safe, and it seemed like the easy route. I found myself leaning into this direction because all I could see was the way to do it. The safe, familiar option that didn't require me to stretch or change too much. But as I continued to wrestle with these decisions, there were choices, right? God used my friends and family, my inner circle, to keep me grounded and lifted. One voice in particular came through so clearly, and that was of my friend Jessica. If you know Jessica, then you know she's the kind of person that speaks with such gentleness, yet her words are always real and always intentional. Over lunch, when I opened up about everything I was feeling about this opportunity, the fear, the doubt, and all the reasons why I wasn't sure about this move, she listened. No interruptions, just soaking in every word. And when she did speak, it was as if it was God led. She said only a few things. One in particular, one opportunity is unique, and the other seems like a once in a lifetime opportunity. In that moment, it hit me. I could choose the comfortable road, the one that felt safer, or I could lean into what God was calling me to. That was a defining moment for me because sometimes we get stuck in comfortable, right? And God is a God who works in us and through us, stretching us beyond what feels familiar. He calls us out of our comfortable places and into the unknown to fulfill the purpose He has for us. So here's the big question for today's episode. What change are you resisting right now? And what roadblocks are you throwing up to keep yourself from stepping into God's purpose for your life? Let's dive into how the choices we make shape our journey. Because this is exactly where the power of choices come in. We have choices in front of us to shape us and the journey that God has for us. The choices we make, especially in times that seem impossible, directly affect our progress towards our purpose. Are you choosing to move forward, even in the uncomfortable, or are you choosing to stay in the familiar because it feels safe? Let's talk about it. My friend, there are three types of choices we make that shape the trajectory of our lives. And when we look to the Bible, we can see just how powerful choices are. These three choices, the comfortable choice. We all know the comfortable choice. It's the one that feels easy, familiar, and safe. In the Bible, we see Lot making a comfortable choice when he chose to settle in the city of Sodom. Genesis 13. Lot looked at the fertile plains of the Jordan and saw what appeared to be an easy choice, comfortable. However, that choice led him to a city of destruction. We have to be careful about staying too long in our comfort zone. God calls us to move and grow, not just exist in what's comfortable. The second choice, the fear-based choice. Fear can be paralyzing, but sometimes it's in the midst of fear that God calls us to trust. We see Moses as an example of fear-based choices. He initially resisted God's call to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, feeling unqualified and fearful of rejection. Exodus 4:10. Moses, his fear nearly stopped the mission that God had already set in motion. You see, sometimes fear leads us to make choices that paralyze us in our current circumstances, just like it did for Moses. But God doesn't leave us in our fear. He equips us to rise above it. And lastly, faith-fueled choices. Finally, there's choices out of faith, the ones we make when we step out of what's comfortable and trust that God has already made a way. Abraham is the ultimate example of this. In Genesis 12, 1 through 4, he was called to leave everything he knew and follow God's command to a land that was unknown. Abraham didn't know exactly what lay ahead, but he chose to trust God. That faith-driven decision changed the course of history. Now I share these choices with you because in my own life, I was faced with all three, especially in these recent days. Change has rocked my world. My goodness, my goodness. From moving to South Carolina with my children to losing my grandmother, planning her funeral, and making decisions I never thought I'd have to make. It's been a lot, a whole lot. And honestly, I've struggled with every choice, every single one of them. You see, when my grandmother passed away, it felt like the world had come to an halt. The weight of the loss was heavy, and everything around me seemed to move in slow motion. I was in the middle of preparing for her funeral when I received the call that would change everything. The call I had actually been waiting on. Will this opportunity be the opportunity for me? But when the call came in extending an offer for this role, it didn't seem right. It didn't seem doable at all at this point. In fact, it felt selfish. I was overwhelmed with the tension between the grief I was carrying and the new beginnings that were awaiting me. I found myself sitting in a funeral home parking lot, unable to hold it together. And if you know me personally, like if you are a true friend and you're listening in, you know that for the most part, I am strong in the moments in which I need to be, and I can hold things together very well. But in this moment, I found myself broken down in the funeral home parking lot, crying, unable to move, because what seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime seemed so damn selfish. The weight of the decision in front of me seemed unbearable. How could I possibly leave my family, especially my mother, who was grieving as an only child? How could I leave my siblings who needed me? The pull to stay, to be present was strong. Could I really take on this new opportunity when my family needed me here, in the right now, in the current? It felt like grief and joy were competing for a space in my heart, and I didn't know how to quite navigate both at once. For an entire week, I sat on this decision. The ED reached out with such a kind offer, but I couldn't bring myself to sign the dotted line. Fear paralyzed me. My mind kept leaning towards the other opportunity that was closer, more comfortable, and offered more immediate solutions. It seemed like the safer, easier choice. You know, I could be home with my mother on weekends, and I could be present for my family as they dealt with the loss like I was. That was my fear-based choice. But God sees past the present, and He works in what is yet to come. He knew the big picture when I could only see the immediate. Every conversation with God and every word of encouragement from friends kept reassuring me that He had already worked it out. As I prayed and cried, I could hear God in the voices of those around me, calming my fears, comforting my anxiety. I knew He was answering all of my questions. I knew He was addressing all of my doubts. And then the opportunity expired. No signature, no decision. The window closed. I sat with God in that moment, sat with my feelings, sat with my own choice to do nothing. Hear me well, my friend. I sat with my own choice to do nothing. Doing nothing is also a choice, a fear-based choice at that. But it is in this space that it became clear to me. I realized that I didn't want to settle for comfortable or to be paralyzed by fear. I wanted that opportunity that I had resisted up until this moment. Deep down, I knew it was purposeful work, and it was work that God was calling me to do. And it was aligning with where I was supposed to be. And the funny thing is, God wasn't done yet. So here we go. The ED reaches out again, one more time. This time, her words were full of compassion and life. She said, "You are the person for this. Come and make this happen with us." The funny thing here is, you have to realize that what is for you, my friend, will be. I have resisted and doubted, but God's plan is never in jeopardy. And that, my friend, is the power of choices. The choices we make shape our journey, and when we make them rooted in faith, we walk boldly into the purpose God has for us. Hear me well. God's plan is never in jeopardy. So whether you do it willingly or you do it kicking, screaming, and shouting, you will do it because His plan is never in jeopardy and it never fails. And what is for you will be. So here is our moment of reflection. I want you to simply ask yourself, what type of choices am I making when it comes to the changes that I need to see in my life? Are your choices comfortable choices, fear-based choices, or faith-fueled choices? What choices are you making? I want us to explore the ripple effect of these choices and how they impact not just our lives, but those around us. You know, as I look back, it's clear that this decision to move to South Carolina didn't just impact me. It has had a ripple effect that extends far beyond what I could have imagined. My whole family has been a part of this journey, and in ways that I never could have predicted. God used them to confirm his plan and push us forward, not just me. One of the most significant influences in this decision has been my mother. After everything that we've gone through, it was her voice that brought me to the clarity I needed. It was on a ride to Mississippi with her and my sister that I truly felt God's presence in this decision, even more. As we drove, my mother spoke words that shook me to my core. Two simple words: new beginnings. She went on to say, we all need this opportunity. And I couldn't have asked for a better confirmation. You see, last episode I shared with you how I paced the floors of Target, aisle after aisle after aisle, talking with God about this very thing. How do I leave my mother right now? But her words confirmed for me that it was now the time for new beginnings, that we all needed this opportunity. And if her words had been anything else, I might have hesitated, questioned this opportunity more, and turned away. But in that moment, God used her to speak directly to my heart. I knew it was the confirmation that I needed to move forward. But it also didn't just come through my mother. God worked through my sister too. She's always been someone who has seen the bigger picture, in my opinion. And though she never says, I told you so, her actions speak louder than words. She never gave up on me. In fact, she started searching for opportunities that would align with this new chapter. She found several opportunities as that. We often say that this girl can always find a job, okay? She found several opportunities, and it was clear that this change wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. She's been so supportive, and now I see how God is working through her to push me, as well as to prepare her life for her next steps and the purpose that she's meant to fulfill. I see how this opportunity to move to South Carolina and to take on this new role has opened up opportunities for her to step into her own gifts and talents. And that's the truth about gifts and talents. They aren't just for us. They are meant to be shared, to serve others, and to make rooms for others to shine as well. My journey wouldn't have been complete without these people surrounding me. My mother, my sister, my friends, my own children, affirming for me the path that I'm meant to take, and in ways walking with me on this journey. The impact is felt far beyond what I originally imagined when I made the decision to step into the unknown. And this ties into something so powerful when it comes to decision making. Studies show that our habits, our patterns of thoughts and behavior influence not only our day-to-day lives, but also our long-term trajectory. One decision, when rooted in purpose and faith, can set the stage for lasting change. In fact, the habits we form around how we make decisions, whether grounded in fear, faith, or comfort, directly impact the directions our lives will take. In the Bible, we see this truth reflected time and time again. So let me preach. Abraham's choice to leave his homeland was not just a personal decision. It was a monumental turning point in the unfolding of God's plan for humanity. Imagine the magnitude of that decision. Abraham was called to leave everything he knew, his family, his land, his comfort, and following God's voice into the unknown. Had he stayed, that would have been the end of his story. But by stepping out in faith, he became the father of a nation, the patriarch of Israel, whose legacy echoes throughout Scripture. His obedience laid the foundation for everything that followed. Abraham's decision was a starting point of God's covenant promise to his people. Through Abraham's lineage, we see the birth of the nation of Israel, God's chosen people. Without Abraham's faith-driven steps into the unknown, there wouldn't have been Isaac, Jacob, or the 12 tribes of Israel. And without Israel, there wouldn't have been the establishment of the Jewish faith or the powerful unfolding of the story of redemption that comes through the prophets and kings. His willingness to obey God's call has a direct link to the salvation story that ultimately culminates in Jesus Christ. Think about it. Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, was born into the lineage of Abraham. He is the fulfillment of the promise God made to Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. Genesis 15:5. If Abraham had not stepped out in faith, if he had not taken that leap of obedience, the generations that followed, Isaac, Jacob, David, and ultimately Jesus, would not have been positioned in the way that God intended to redeem the world. And I don't know about you, but I personally am thankful and grateful that Abraham was obedient. You see, this decision doesn't just impact one man's life. It impacts the very fabric of humanity's relationship with God. It is the reason that I am able to sit before you today and to help you unfold all of these biblical truths and to apply them to your lives, your everyday life. It is the fabric of humanity's relationship with God. My friend, what is your relationship with God like right now? Because you see, had Abraham not followed God's command, the entire narrative of salvation history could have looked vastly different, non-existent at that. This single act of obedience, this one choice to leave everything behind, set in motion the very foundation for Jesus Christ's birth, life, death, and resurrection. When you really, and I mean really, stop to think about it, the ripple effect from that decision has been felt for thousands of years. It's not just a biblical story. It's a living truth that impacts us today. Jesus Christ, the Savior, came through the lineage of Abraham, and his work on the cross is what allows us to have a relationship with God. It's what allows us to receive forgiveness. And it is what allows us to walk in the newness of life. It is what allows us to look for eternity. Every person who has ever been touched by the gospel is directly or indirectly connected to Abraham's willingness to trust God. And I'll say it again. Every person who has ever been touched by the gospel is directly or indirectly connected to Abraham's willingness to trust God. And here's the hidden gem. God doesn't just work through one person to fulfill his plan. Abraham's obedience wasn't just about him. It was about generations upon generations that would come after him, all the way to Jesus and even to you and me today. Back to the comment earlier in the show. How does what I share about biblical truths relate to you and me? My friend, this is how. Abraham's decision created a ripple that extends beyond time and space, touching lives for eternity. When Abraham chose faith over comfort, when he chose obedience over security, he didn't just change his life, he changed the trajectory of human history. The same is true for us today. We often think our decisions are small or inconsequential. Just like Abraham, when we step out in faith, we don't just change our own story, we change the world around us. And who knows? Maybe the next generation or even a future generation will look back and see the impact of the choices we made today. In my own journey, God has positioned people in my life at just the right moments to push me on this path. He works through friends, families, and even strangers to guide us and remind us that we're never truly alone in our decisions. Every conversation, every affirmation, every step I've taken has been surrounded by His presence. And just as I've seen how my family is walking through their own journeys now, in part because of the change in my own life, it has ripple effects. As you think about your own journey, I want you to consider this. What impact are your choices making? Not just for you, but for the people around you. Are you stepping into new beginnings in this new year and allowing your choices to bring you and others closer to purpose? You see, I've learned that God's plan for us is bigger than just our own individual success. The choices we make, guided by His will, create a ripple effect that can impact families, communities, and even generations to come. And as we make these choices rooted in faith, He will position us and the people in our lives exactly where we need to be. The ripple effect is real, and every choice you make, no matter how small, carries weight. That's the power of faith driven decision making. When we trust God and follow His lead, we are participating in something far bigger than we can comprehend. Our decisions can have an eternal ripple effect, shaping lives, transforming hearts, and advancing God's kingdom in ways we may never fully understand. But He sees it all, and He knows exactly what our obedience today can mean for the future. So ask yourself, how will my choices shape the world around me? My friend, you need to take action. And here are impactful steps needed for transformation as it relates to change and the choices we make. This is where we get into the nitty gritty of how to shift not just our mindset, but the very direction of our lives for lasting change and generational impact. Stay with me. Step 1, examine your core beliefs and mindsets. True transformation starts deep within. It's about examining and confronting the beliefs and mindsets that have been guiding your choices up until now. You can't change your future without first understanding how your past and present beliefs have shaped your decisions. This requires honest self reflection, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. But take time to sit with God and ask Him to reveal the areas of your thinking that need to be transformed. Romans 12:2 tells us, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Step 2, step outside of your comfort zone. Transformation rarely happens in the comfort zone. To create lasting change, we must be willing to step outside of what is familiar and even what feels safe. It's about embracing discomfort as growth. Sometimes it's about choosing the path that scares you because you know it's where God is leading you, not because it feels easy. If you are always choosing the comfortable option, you may be missing out on the opportunities that come when you take a step in faith. Step 3, align your choices with your legacy. Think beyond the immediate. Ask yourself, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to be remembered for? Every choice you make today is contributing to your legacy and what you leave behind. Whether you're planting seeds for generational wealth, wisdom, service, or faith, your choices today are laying the foundation for future generations. If you want to leave a legacy of faith, for example, then your decisions must reflect that. How you lead your family, how you treat others, how you steward your resources, all of this shapes the legacy you leave behind. And lastly, step 4, act and keep acting, my friend. Act and keep acting. You can't just think about change. You have to do the work. Action is the bridge between intention and transformation. It's not enough to say you want to make a change or that you want to leave a legacy. You must take consistent steps toward it. That means you'll need to put in the effort even when it feels like nothing is happening. James 2:17 tells us, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. It's not just enough to just have faith or to know what God is calling you to do. You must step forward in faith, trusting that God is guiding your every move, and act. As we close today, remember, every choice you make is a seed. Think about it. What are you planting for your future? If you want transformation, lasting, meaningful, and generational, then your choices must reflect the life you want to create. You must examine your beliefs, step out of your comfort zone, and align your choices with your legacy. Cultivate accountability and take action, even when it's hard. And remember, it's not just about the here and now. It's about the ripple effect of your life's work and how it will impact generations to come. As always, I'd love to hear from you. If there's a topic that you want to hear more about, email me directly at info@bettymichellemc.com. Let me know how we can dive into deeper conversations in future episodes. And lastly, if today's episode has resonated with you, I encourage you to share your reflections on social media or join our community discussions over at www.bettymichellemc.com. Let's continue to walk in purpose, building legacies that will last for generations. Keep shining, keep growing, and know that you are made for this. Until next time.